Where is Balake at?
My name's Blake.
Do you want to go to war, Balake? I'm for real. Ron.
Ron is here, everyone. Welcome back for more SPTV, where every day is a great day not to be in a cult. Well. We have been speculating for a long time whether internet bottom dweller Anthony D'Amato Jr., known on YouTube as Zero Dark Tony, could possibly be an actual paid agent of Scientology, or just a degenerate who gets off trying to hurt people who are dedicating their time to exposing Scientology fraud and abuse and destruction of families and, abuse of children and all that good stuff. And I have come to you today to say that based on one of my most reliable sources, and I realize to a certain extent, guys, some of my videos when I talk about some of this stuff comes down to you're going to have to trust me, bro. And that's okay, because at least I talk about shit I actually know about, okay? Scientology is a very small community. Sometimes it's not possible to reveal a source of information and to provide, receipts at a certain level without doxing sources. So to some extent, some of my videos are, you're going to have to trust me, bro. And that's just the way it is, unfortunately. And the good news is that you guys get to decide whether you trust me or not. And that's good enough for me. One of my most trusted sources, who has been an unbelievably reliable source of information about insider activities at Talent Executive Services, the guys who provide private security for David Miscavige and Scientology, has been an unbelievable insider source for information at PAC Security. That's the Sea Org security unit located on L. Ron Hubbard Way. And an inside source of information relating to other things that actually sort of blow my mind, has informed me that Zero Dark Tony is paid, and this is going to sound crazy, but I'm going to back it up a little bit with other examples, is paid every month with cash in an envelope by this guy right here, Eaton Kellender, Director of Development at Citizens Commission on Human Rights International. CCHR, Citizens Commission of Human Rights, is a Scientology front group, mostly known for being an anti-psychiatry front group, but it has another purpose. It has another purpose. It is the real dark money and funder of black bag operations in Scientology, because it is legally one step removed from Scientology. Scientologists are under the impression that the IAS, the International Association of Scientologists, is actually the war chest for Scientology. And that is not true. That is just what they want you to think, because it's very sexy and they can promote it. The real war chest, the real war, is fought in the dark. And the IAS only wants you to know about things that they want to do press releases about. They don't want you to know about the dark, dirty, illegal stuff that they're doing, because, and that, for that reason, that stuff is not funded by the IAS. That stuff is funded through a cash slush fund operated by CCHR. I have known this for years. Okay. My inside source that I'm talking about, just so you guys know, I'm willing to say this, because this doesn't actually limit the field at all. Not a Scientologist. Okay. The guys at Talent Executive Services, for example, the security that does all the private security for David Miscavige, for the most part, guys, these people are not Scientologists. Scientology would rather the people that are doing the really dirty work not only not be Scientologists, but not even know that they're working for Scientologists or Scientology. Okay. So the guy who is my source on this, not a Scientologist, and so would not just organically know about CCHR. A Scientologist would, for the most part, have absolutely no idea and would never even guess that the black bag operations that Scientology really doesn't want anyone to know about are funded through CCHR. Your average Scientologist doesn't actually know that. And so the fact that this guy did know that. Okay, now I realize I understand, guys. This is very much trust me, bro. But Sometimes I just have to put information out there so that the people about whom or to whom this information impacts just need to know that I know. And I'm putting it out there. Go ahead, Tony. Go ahead, Tony. I think Tony put something on his community page the other day that said he was going to swear to an affidavit that he's not financially motivated. That doesn't mean you're not getting money. You can claim not to be financially motivated and still be getting money to do it, Tony. Tony, I want you to publicly or submit an affidavit, submit a legal affidavit, get it all signed and notarized, whatever, do it in front of a judge or whatever. I don't know. And say, I do not receive any cash in an envelope every month from Eaton Callender, our South African buddy over Director of Development at CCHR International. And I am told that Zero Dark Tony is not the only person whom Eaton Callender delivers a nice little envelope of cash to infiltrate and destroy the SPTV online YouTube former Scientologist community, as well as the protesters. And guys, when you recall protester Confident Chris just very coincidentally being physically assaulted just as he happened to be walking from L. Ron Hubbard Way back to his car by a guy who happened to have his face covered, by a guy who happened to be pretending to need a couple bucks, but was really just there to beat him up and run away. That is the kind of black bag illegal operations that are funded through these this slush fund through CCHR. That guy probably had no idea who he was working for. He didn't care. I mean, I've got so many notes here. I'm trying to keep my thoughts organized. I'm going to do my best. But that, like, slashing tires, beating people up, showing up at your house every night at or 3 nights a week at 2 a.m. flashing, a flashlight in your windows and stuff. These are the kind of things CCHR and their people will literally give money to a cutout to go around and find homeless people that they can give money to go and do illegal things. It sounds crazy. You're like, no church would do that. And you're right, because Scientology is not a church. It's a multi-billion-dollar international family-destroying human trafficking cult. And that's the difference, guys. That's the difference, guys. Don't get it twisted. Don't get it twisted. Normal churches or religions don't do stuff like this. Other bad stuff gets done by other religious groups, but this takes nastiness to a whole nother level. Okay, by the way, so right now I'm personally calling out Eaton Callender, who is, per report, allegedly the guy paying Zero Dark Tony using CCHR cash from the CCHR slush fund. Let's see who is Eaton Callender here. He is a long-term Scientologist. And let me zoom in on this a little bit. We can see, congratulations, Eaton. Eaton has just this year made a huge, giant leap forward on his progress of Scientology's bridge to total freedom. He finished R60W on his alternate route to clear. Good job, Eaton. You should be on your OT levels by now. Real quick, just for fun, I want to show you what Grok had to say, asking what is CCHR International and what is its connection to Scientology? Just for fun, guys. And take our time here. CCHR is an international advocacy group established in 1969 by Scientology and psychiatrist Thomas Saz. Yes, guys, Scientology, being completely anti-psychiatry, partnered up with a psychiatrist to create a psychiatry watchdog group. By the way, you notice that's what Scientology does when they want to lend some legitimacy to some of their forward-facing organizations, right? So they'll be like, CCHR, what? My pearls, that wasn't our idea. That was Dr. Thomas Saz's idea. We merely helped. Narconon, what? My pearls, that wasn't our idea. And honestly, I forget the name of the former addict and criminal that started Narconon, that Scientology is like, that wasn't our idea. That was a non-Scientologist who was inspired by the works of L. Ron Hubbard and created this organization all on his own. We are merely there for assistance and guidance and mentorship. All right. Okay, so let's see what Grok had to say. We got a lot to cover here, guys. We're just having fun. Okay, CCHR's primary mission is to investigate and expose what it perceives as human rights violations within the field of mental health, particularly those attributed to psychiatric practices. Purpose and activities: exposing psychiatric abuses. CCHR works to highlight what it considers to be harmful practices in psychiatry. Okay, legislation. CCHR has been instrumental in supporting the enactment of laws aimed at protecting individuals from psychiatric abuses. All right, educational campaigns. CCHR produced numerous documentaries and maintains a museum called Psychiatry, an Industry of Death, which chronicles what they see as the historical abuses of psychiatry. Okay, good. We're going to keep going. But before I forget, I got to tell you, the LA protesters. Oh boy, it would be great to see Streets LA, William Good, decide to dedicate some time and attention to the CCHR facility on Sunset Boulevard, Psychiatry, an Industry of Death. Now that we are peeling back, now that we're exposing the truth of what CCHR's role is in harassing the protesters, it would be amazing if the protesters actually visited CCHR a little bit. They've got a big, beautiful building, and it's crazy. The Psychiatry Industry of Death Museum is batshit crazy. And who knows, maybe the protesters want to drop by and try to get a tour or something. Okay, connection to Scientology. CCHR was co-founded by Scientology, reflecting Scientology's longstanding opposition to psychiatry. The opposition is rooted in the beliefs of Scientology's founder, L. Ron Hubbard, who is highly critical of psychiatric practices. While CCHR claims to be an independent entity, it is closely affiliated with Scientology, sharing resources and often operating out of the same premises. Its board of advisors and many of its members are Scientologists. Although CCHR states that it operates independently, it is widely recognized as a front group for Scientology, with Scientology providing significant support both financially and in terms of manpower. CCHR's activities and connection to Scientology have led to significant controversy. Critics argue that its campaigns are more about promoting Scientology's anti-psychiatry stance than genuine human rights advocacy. Some also point out that the group's information can be skewed to fit its narrative against Scientology. Okay. Now, I've got so many screen shares or tabs set up to share with you that I want to make sure I try to keep this organized. When it talks about CCHR sharing facilities and finances and even members with Scientology, it gets better, guys. It's not just Scientology in general that CCHR shares resources with. It is directly Scientology's Office of Special Affairs. You guys know it. OSA, you guys know it. You guys heard of it. It's basically the dirty tricks department of Scientology is the Office of Special Affairs. Wouldn't you know it that the executive director of CCHR Florida, aka CCHR Clearwater, happens to be Diane Stein, the former director of Office of Special Affairs for the Atlanta org. How do I know? Because Diane was a close personal friend of mine when I was still in Scientology. And her deputy director here over on the right, Pat DiMartino, also former director of special affairs for the Philadelphia organization. How do I know that? Because Pat is my little brother's stepmom, and I have known Pat since I was a little child. So even in this one small example, you can see Scientology's Office of Special Affairs that already handles all the dirty tricks has a huge overlap with CCHR, which happens to be where the real dirty tricks happen. Okay, now CCHR International. Okay, good. Now we're gonna have some more fun here, you guys. Let's go to GuideStar. GuideStar is basically the #1 aggregator of nonprofit organization information in the United States. Basically, any U.S. nonprofit, you can find their information on GuideStar. When you search Citizens Commission on Human Rights, you can see how many different chapters of CCHR exist, and that these exist independently, corporately of the Church of Scientology. Okay. CCHR San Francisco, CCHR International, which we're going to get to in a moment. CCHR Nashville, CCHR, nope, that's not the right one. CCHR DC, Seattle, New York, Connecticut, Chicago, Phoenix, Ventura, Minnesota, Oregon. I don't know, guys. It seems like they've got a CCHR pretty much everywhere. They've got a Scientology org. Utah, Sacramento, LA. Crazy, you guys, right? Okay. Well, let's take a look at CCHR International, located in Los Angeles. Come on, you can do a little fella. Click on it. Click through. Okay, good. So here we go. And it will verify for us right here that the one and only Fran Andrews is still the executive director of CCHR Int. She has been forever. And I'm going to share with you some other blog post info showing Fran Andrews' husband is Russ Andrews, notorious private investigator and the go-to guy for harassment campaigns. And I can tell you from personal knowledge that Russ Andrews is personally involved, or has been historically, in collecting the envelopes of cash from rich Scientologists and deploying those envelopes in cash, deploying those envelopes of cash, specifically doing it so that it could never, ever be tracked back to CCHR and Scientology. But I'll tell you one of the reasons they even do this through CCHR, because even if you were to legally prove that it was CCHR that was doing it, they would be able to legally argue that it still has nothing to do with the Church of Scientology because how it is legally incorporated. Now, let me see. Russ Andrews' PI firm is, I had it right here. Please tell me. Try something. Tri-West Investigations. I didn't even pull up the website to share with you guys, but Russ Andrews, Tri-West Investigations. It is not a coincidence that the husband of CCHR Int is a licensed PI with his own firm. It is okay. So I am now going to show you some articles that were written by Mike Rinder and Tony Ortega, specifically about Russ Andrews and his role in this type of stuff. Okay, here is a blog post from Mike Rinder, the Black Bag Department. This is only about 9 months ago. Okay, we're not going to read the whole thing, but let's get some context here. Okay. All right, let's see. Okay, he's commenting on some of the videos that Marty Rathbun had been doing. He goes, Marty's been doing a good job of exposing the unalterable policies of the church concerning dealing with perceived enemies. Just to avoid any confusion, he's referring to the fact that Marty Rathbun used to be one of the highest level defectors and anti-Scientology crusaders. Scientology managed using threats, blackmail, coercion, and money to get Marty Rathbun to defect back to Scientology. And they've been using Marty Rathbun to attack and discredit everybody who he had anything to do with while he was in the anti-Scientology movement. So it sounds like Mike Rinder here is paying Marty Rathbun a compliment, but it's a little tongue-in-cheek. Okay, Marty's been doing a good job of exposing the unalterable policies of the church concerning dealing with perceived enemies. One aspect not much discussed is who are the outside professionals hired to do the dirty work. And while there is a lot that is done by Sea Org OSA staff, Class 5 OSA staff, and public Scientologists, there is work that requires specific skills, including licenses to carry and or needs more distance from the church to avoid a measure of plausible deniability. There are quite a number of these outside professionals that are ostensibly hired by lawyers, but in reality are run directly by church staff, either in RTC or OSA. The subterfuge of using lawyers like Elliot Abelson and Rick Moxon depends on doing what the church asks them. They are mere window dressing to try to cloak the activities and reports of these pros with a privilege. The privilege is then abused in discovery, and virtually everything that might prove incriminating being withheld as confidential and outside the scope of discovery due to some sort of attorney-client or attorney work product privilege being asserted. Okay, so then he starts mentioning some examples of these outside professionals. And even though this right here does not talk, even though the paragraph I'm about to read to you, we haven't yet gotten to Russ Andrews. I just want to read it to you because it's incredible. Mike says, which brings us to Miscavige's private security. For many years, that function was performed by Ted Banis, another former cop. He was with David Miscavige 24/7. There were additional armed security personnel when Miscavige was at an event, but Ted was always there. When Miscavige was in Clearwater directing the Lisa McPherson case from 1998 to 2001, Ted was there with him. So long, in fact, that he married Penny Atwell Jones and moved to Clearwater. I do not know Ted's current status. He was a nice guy. He also knows a lot of the real scene of Miscavige in his life. He was with Miscavige from when he got up in the morning to when he went to sleep at night. He went to the movies with him, scuba diving with him, flew to England for the IS event, and anywhere else in the world that Miscavige traveled. He was part of the Miscavige entourage for many years. He may still be. Okay. That's fine. He goes on a little later to mention Russ Andrews. Here we go. Also in Los Angeles, but very much behind the scenes is Russ Andrews. He is the husband of Fran Andrews, who runs CCHR International. For many years, Russ has been the go-to guy to get phone and financial records and run license plates and get criminal record checks done. Nobody ever wants to know how this is accomplished, but it is a well-known fact that there are people who cultivate friends in the phone companies and banks who like to make a little extra cash. This is how the church tracks down a lot of connections. Finding out what numbers someone has been calling or receiving calls from, it tells you a lot. And of course, financial information can be a gold mine. Okay, good. Let me pull up. Okay, that's just the first mention of Russ Andrews. I'll close that window. Oh no, I just messed up my screen share. Okay, let me redo the screen share. Give me a second. Okay, good. Now let me get it actually ready to go. All right. Let's take a look at this. All right, this one is from Tony Ortega from a few years ago, almost 4 years ago, actually. Okay. Okay, he quotes the paragraph about Russ Andrews that we just read. Okay. And then Tony says, we thought it might be useful to bring Russ Andrews into the light of day, especially after what we discovered him talking about openly on his Facebook group. All right, we've got a photo here. This is Russ Andrews, his wife, Fran. Okay, there, I guess that's Russ in the middle. Okay. This is Russ Andrews, his wife, Fran. Their 3 kids who are all in the Sea Org. Their son is married to Carolyn Overgaard, daughter to Scientology donor and ex-husband of Joy Villa, Thorsten Overgaard. As Mike Rinder indicated, Fran runs Scientology's front group that goes by the name Citizens Commission on Human Rights. It is CCHR's mission to carry out operations to propagandize against the psychiatric profession, which Scientology hates, with a white-hot passion. Okay. Another look at Russ. Okay, Tony says, we've pointed out numerous times that CCHR is the most unhinged of Scientology's propaganda fronts, but it does sometimes keep its TRs in so that it can play nice and influence politicians, like in 2015, when it organized a campaign against a bill in Texas and apparently convinced Governor Abbott to veto it. But if CCHR craves acceptance with policymakers, we wondered how they might respond to a question. What does CCHR and its director, Fran Andrews, have to say about her husband, Scientology black bag operator Russ Andrews, especially when, at his Facebook account, he exhibits such a repellent relationship to the concept of human rights? Okay, but what did he say on his Facebook page? I don't know. All right. Well, let's see what the letter says. Okay. Oh, geez. It's been brought to my attention that Mr. Andrews engages in abusive, misogynistic, homophobic, and transphobic rhetoric at his personal Facebook page, records of which I have downloaded. Specifically, Mr. Andrews refers to Vice President Kamala Harris consistently, not by her name, but by the epithet whore, and spells it whore in order to get by Facebook censors. He also refers to LGBT persons as homos, again, using zeros in order to bypass the censors. Okay. He has a particular fascination for transgender individuals, writing insulting language about their appearance and refers to former President Obama's wife, Michelle, as a man. Okay. I should have read this beforehand. In all, I have many examples of the hurtful rhetoric of Mr. Andrews, and I'm asking for a statement from Mrs. Andrews and CCHR about this longtime Scientologist and Scientology operative, Russ Andrews. Okay. Interesting sample of Mr. Andrews' work. Believe it or not, guys, I think most Scientologists would probably say stuff like that in private, at least. Okay, so this gets a little more interesting. I had no idea that's what it said. Okay, here we go. So check this out. This actually directly ties Russ Andrews to the harassment of the anonymous protesters. Okay. So and this article is just a few days after the other one that I just read. Okay. Tony says, Saturday, we revealed the appearance of one of Scientology's notorious black bag department operators, a private investigator named Russ Andrews. Now we've heard from a source that says one of Andrews' many operations was to spy on members of Anonymous in Seattle, to track them down and identify them for the Church of Scientology. Isn't it interesting that a PI and a Scientologist based in Los Angeles was deployed specifically to Seattle, showing that Russ Andrews really is the go-to guy for this kind of stuff. I just thought that was interesting. Okay. We have a document that our source says was produced by Russ Andrews during the operation, and it demonstrates what members of Anonymous always suspected, that Scientology watched them obsessively in order to ID them for harassment. The sudden arrival of the Anonymous movement was, of course, one of the most surprising and memorable episodes of Scientology watching history. And guys, that is absolutely true for the YouTube phenomenon and the YouTube protester phenomenon. Okay. So the fact that I have direct information, I'll call it unconfirmed. The fact that I have direct, unconfirmed information that CCHR directly is funding the infiltrators and agent provocateurs going after protesters and SPTV. Plus, you already have existing evidence that CCHR's president and director, Fran Andrews, that her husband was directly involved in the exact same activities years earlier with Anonymous. I'm telling you guys, CCHR, the Psychiatry Industry of Death Museum on Sunset Boulevard, needs to get some attention. That's all I'm saying. Okay. Okay, in January 2008, a video of a Tom Cruise interview made by Scientology 4 years earlier was leaked onto the internet. And when Scientology tried to suppress it, the Anonymous movement then took it on as a challenge. After posting an ominous video about how Scientology's anti-internet history was obnoxious to them, Anonymous then called for in-person protests in February 2008. Thousands showed up at pickets in cities around the world. Here's a local TV report of the protests that happened in February in Seattle. We're not going to watch that. Part of the point of showing up in large anonymous groups was to stymie Scientology's reputation for retaliation. With thousands of protesters and with their identities hidden, how could Scientology's notorious private investigators retaliate? It's so amazing to juxtapose the effort to protest Scientology anonymously back then with the complete opposite effort of literally live streaming with your real, visible face and your name known. It just shows you how far things have come and what a paper tiger Scientology really is these days. Now, I say paper tiger because at the end of the day, what can they really do? But they can try to do a lot, and they are trying. I guess I pose to you guys the questions. Is it effective? Is it effective? I mean, in this video, we're talking about Zero Dark Tony. I ask you, is Zero Dark Tony effective? Has he been effective? I tend to feel that he hasn't been, because I personally am not bothered by all the stuff he's done to try to attack me. But there are others who are really, really bothered by it. And they spend a lot of time talking about it and reacting to it. And it's affected their mental health. So I guess in that respect, I'm kind of explaining how he has been effective. But what do you guys think? To the movement at large, has Zero Dark Tony been effective? Okay, let's keep going. Scientology did retaliate, with private investigators following protesters home and with some even infiltrating anonymous local groups. We've written in the past about Sierra Westerman, for example, who came forward and revealed that she had infiltrated Anonymous in Clearwater, Florida, in order to help Scientology dox other protesters. By the way, Scientology's documented history of doxing anonymous protesters by following them back to their cars is precisely why I said that is exactly what they did to the Danny Masterson jurors. That is how Scientology and Danny Masterson's defense team found out who all the jurors were. Okay, in Seattle, our source says that Russ Andrews was flown out to join local Scientology operatives to try and ID members of Anonymous there in April 2009, more than a year after the protests had first begun. By April 2009, monthly pickets were much smaller, of course, and so it was easier to ID individual picketers. One of them, who went by the name Kilt Boy, was singled out for watching. They turned over to us notes that they say were compiled by Russ Andrews after a 12-hour shift, watching Kilt Boy outside his house and following him into downtown Seattle. Here's the text of the document. License plate numbers and a name are redacted. Okay. Work product, C5 location. I don't know what C5 means. Primary objective, locate, identify Kilt Boy. Wow, this is amazing. April 4th, 2009, 12:40, I don't know, PM or AM, we don't know. A blue Saturn sedan is parked on the north side of Unit A. This is the third day in a row this car is seen parked at this location. No other cars of interest are observed at this location. 12:45, silver Ford Taurus is parked on the street in the bike-only lane. It is believed that Kilt Boy and Gnome probably arrived in this vehicle. 12:58, a female believed to be Gnome and an unidentified male, tall, average build, dark curly hair, balding spot at the back of the head, stringy goatee, and wireframe eyeglasses are seen exiting from the parking area near Unit A. The male is seen wearing a black leather jacket. The female is wearing long wool maroon colored coats. This is exciting, you guys. This could be like a detective novel. They walk to the north end of the block, cross over to the west side of the street, walk down to the south end of the block, cross over to the east side of the street, and return to the parking lot and are seen entering Unit A. They appear to be conversing while talking. All right. Well, this goes on and on and on. God, this is amazing. And so this is just an example of how far Scientology went just to identify a couple picketers in Seattle, Washington, who posed no actual threat to Scientology. It's remarkable. Okay. Tony goes on to say, we want to make it clear that there's nothing illegal revealed about the surveillance described in this document. Russ Andrews is a Scientologist who works for its Office of Special Affairs, and spying on people the church considers enemies is one of its main activities, as has been demonstrated in countless other videos and documents. But it's rare to get a look at raw work product like this, and we thank our source for sharing it with us. Okay, so here's a mention of his company. We sent an email to Russ Andrews through his company, Tri-West Investigative Services, asking for him to communicate with us about his work and Scientology in general. God, it sure would be a damn shame if some protesters visited the offices of Tri-West Investigative Services. I mean, assuming they're still open for business. I mean, after all, there's some very legitimate questions to ask of Russ Andrews at Tri-West Investigative Services, and of Fran Andrews and Eaton Callender at CCHR International. I don't know. Seems like it would be productive. Okay, let's see. Between my screen shares set up over here and my notes set up over here, it's hard to know where to begin. Okay, I want to give you an example, another example of Russ Andrews and how he is still involved today, without question, in matters that are of the highest priority to David Miscavige and Scientology. The ongoing litigation against Scientology and David Miscavige and Danny Masterson by Danny Masterson's victims and some of their family members is, because there's only a few lawsuits that David Miscavige is personally named in, and one of them is this lawsuit by Danny Masterson's victims. Russ Andrews, the private investigator Scientologist, is someone that Scientology used to try and plant evidence against Danny Masterson, Masterson's victims by, it's crazy how this worked. So remember, Russ Andrews is already a known insider black bag operator for Scientology. Okay. He is one of the guys who's working with Danny Masterson's defense team and lawyers and investigators. And he turns over a box that he found in his garage. It was just a box. I was just going through a box. It was in my garage. It was in my storage. I don't know. I was going through it, and there's some things in here that I think might be of interest to you. The box just happened to have some OW write-ups that would only of one of the Jane Does that would only exist in their auditing files or their ethics files. It's literally internal, protected, priest penitent, privileged information that would never be admissible in a court of law. And Russ Andrews is like, oh, gee, I just was cleaning out my garage this weekend, and you might find some interesting things in here. He gave that to the private investigator working for Danny Masterson's team, who then gave it to the LAPD, who then confronted one of the Jane Does with this information, and it eventually had to be admitted that the source of all of it was Russ frickin' Andrews. But it's absolutely insane, you guys. Absolutely insane. And I'll tell you, like I said, Russ Andrews is someone who is known by members of wealthy Scientology families to make the phone call late at night saying they were going to be coming over for the minimum $5,000 of cash in an envelope, and openly bragged about the fact that no, in CCHR is where we get to do the real stuff because we don't have to play by the rules. Oh my God. If Scientologists only know, if Scientologists only knew, because broadly speaking, Scientologists do not know that's what CCHR does. When I say Russ Andrews showing up to the door of wealthy Scientology families, it's one of these things where it's like they're the ones being let in to the secret, the inside secret, that this is how it really works. This is where the excitement really happens. And by the way, Danny Masterson's favorite pet Scientology cause to promote was CCHR. Okay, let's see, guys. Let's see. I had a whole bunch of other insider juicy Scientology info that I wanted to share with you guys. Some major leaks happening in the class 5 Scientology world, but maybe I'll save that for a separate video so it doesn't get buried at the end of this one. Okay, so you know what? Oh, that's right. I did want to share with you, since I already pulled it up. Let's take a look at it. The most recent year of financials for CCHR. The most recent year on file with GuideStar, for example, 2022. Let's see what kind of money CCHR International is pulling in, at least what they're declaring. So previous year, $3.1 million in change brought in. Current year, $1.8 million. Interesting. They describe themselves as a non-profit, non-political, non-religious mental health industry watchdog whose mission is to eradicate abuses committed under the guise of mental health. We work to ensure patient and consumer protections are enacted and upheld as there's rampant abuse in the field of mental health. We also provide under-the-table cash funding for people willing to infiltrate and destroy groups and movements critical of the Church of Scientology. But you didn't hear that here, folks. You didn't hear that here. Yes, absolutely unbelievable. All right, well, let me just double check my notes. No, that's the insider stuff. We're going to save that for later. Oh, you know what? There actually is something else I wanted to share with you guys. Do I still have the blog post up? I sure do. I sure do. This might seem a little random, but we're being a little random here. You see the person who wrote this blog post on the top left? Her name is Donna Barstow. You guys see where this blog post is being written? Psychology Today. Now, by the way, one of Scientology's favorite ways or favorite strategies when going after an organization or an industry or a movement is, on the one hand, to relentlessly attack, but on the other hand, to infiltrate and try to make allies of insiders and then use those connections to either do more harm or get more information or whatever. The fact that we have Donna Barstow is writing a blog in Psychology Today and is about to drop some very positive Scientology references. Stay tuned for when I explain the connection between Donna Barstow and her work harassing Danny Masterson's victims, even having been interviewed by the police. And the fact, and when anytime that you have anyone associated with Scientology having anything to do with psychiatry, it is CCHR who is managing the relationship. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Donna Barstow, Psychology Today. If you don't ask, the answer is no. Should we get our love advice? From Nora Roberts. Many years ago, soon after I moved to LA, I was talking to a neighbor about dating and boys I liked and whether I should or could make the first move. And she said, if you don't ask, the answer is always no. I couldn't have been more shocked. It was as if she'd given me the whole entire chocolate mousse cake or a job in the studios or a vintage Alexandrite ring. Like many others in Hollywood, although nobody else I knew, she was a Scientologist. They didn't have the bad rap they have now, although it was still considered a cult. And ever since that conversation, I've always thought that it is a religion that has something interesting behind it. I don't remember if I asked the guy out that I was mooning over. In my experience, that's usually a short-lived disaster. But this statement has been my meme ever since. Like many other people, it's hard for me to ask for things, but I've gotten very good at doing it anyway, at least the non-love things. Okay, does she mention Scientology again? Yes, she goes. Okay, I've never finished a romance novel. Might they have nuggets of truth? Just like I thought Scientology did. I see that Roberts has written over 200 books. Now that's inspiring. Okay, now I realize you might go, well, that wasn't overly complimentary of Scientology, but that's actually part of the trick. When I worked in when I was still working in living and working in Philadelphia, for a while I worked for a well-known Scientologist at that time named Dennis Dubin. He was an OT8. He was a IAS Freedom Medal winner, and he had managed over the years to make some very hugely powerful connections, both in politically speaking and what you might call high society in the arts world. And when someone was critical in the press, OSA, the Office of Special Affairs, would call Dennis and ask him to handle it. And what he would do is study up on the person very briefly who had written the article, find something in their background with which he could pretend to have common ground or to admire or want to ask their advice on. And he would call them up, and Dennis would pretend to not be a Scientologist. And he would pretend that he had dabbled a little bit. In other words, he would always refer to Scientology as they, them, their. He would pretend not to be one. And he would call them up and he would chat them up. He was a very friendly, likable guy, could strike up a conversation with anyone. And he was well-rounded. He was a worldly man. And so he would chit chat and talk to them. And then he would figure out how to randomly sprinkle Scientology into the conversation, almost as if it was a nuisance, almost as if, oh yeah, I did a little thing or whatever. And he's like, yeah, it just wasn't, it wasn't my thing. And like, oh, but they're actually really good people. Really good people. Yeah, they really care about this. They really care about that. So in other words, he would bullshit. He would bullshit his way through this thing just to try to take the slight edge off of whatever it was that was causing this other person to want to publicly attack Scientology. Okay. So, that brings us back to a random, weird, ridiculous, pointless article in Psychology Today by someone named Donna Barstow, just making random comments about Scientology and how they're actually really helpful and insightful. And, a lot of good people are that, but I don't actually know any of them. Sure you don't, Donna. Sure you don't, Donna. Well, I'll tell you what, when a random, strange woman was showing up to one of the Jane Doe's houses 3 nights a week at 2 a.m., shining the flashlight in the windows, and then was basically stopped and questioned by the police and gave a fake name and a fake story and a fake address and all this stuff. It was none other than Donna Barstow. The woman writing random articles in Psychology Today, just happening to name drop Scientology. Again, I'm bringing it back to Donna Barstow, CCHR, Fran Andrews, Russ Andrews, Black Bag Operations, Danny Masterson's victims, protesters, former Scientologists on YouTube. It's the real deal, guys. It is the real deal. One of the ways that Scientology gets away with this shit is nobody can believe they're actually fucking doing it. You sound crazy if you say that this is what you think is going on. You sound a little less crazy if you try to show that it actually is what's going on. But honestly, who would believe it? I mean, I think even some Scientologists wouldn't believe it. You know, I'll tell you, the idea that CCHR and Russ Andrews and, you know, secret cash payments could quite literally and very likely have been responsible for Confident Chris getting assaulted and put into the hospital while in the 2 minutes that it took him to walk from LRH Way back to his car. At first, you sound like a nutbag because it looks like it was just a homeless person who happened to hit him. But when you really understand how Scientology works, you understand the chance of that having been a coincidence is damn near zero, okay? And they'd rather have a bunch of people 3 or 4 steps removed from Scientology, literal homeless people being bribed with cash to go do this and go do that. That is actually how Scientology works, guys. Okay, we got a bunch of starred comments. Let's go through them and then we'll wrap this one up. Brenda, it's a bit sad. Tony has some talent. He could have had a good channel without all the ugliness he spewed on everyone. I just hope he goes away now. Gary Mackey, hashtag retire Zach, blue shirt. Gary Mackey, good to see you. I do break out the blue shirt every now and then because it kind of goes good with my eyes. I'm working with a new color scheme here, and I think it's thrown my whole picture off, and it's made me look blue. So I've had to like jack up the lights here. Anyway, thank you for noticing. Eric Rader, welcome as a new channel member. Queen Thayton, member for 9 months. Zero Dark Lusa, am I right? Lethanda Grauklinger, member for 9 months. Thank you, Lethanda. I, for one, trust your information. Happy holidays. Thank you, Lethanda. No, guys, my information is only as good as the information that is provided to me. And it would be logically incorrect to assume that 100% of the information given to me is always 100% accurate. I, for one, have been shocked by how accurate the information from this source has been and how often. And so, whereas in a court of law, the best that I could do is say that this is what has been represented to me. And I realize I have not actually provided any hard evidence in this video. I got to tell you, I believe the information. And so I wanted to at least put it out there. You can deny it, Tony. Feel free to deny it. Or better yet, admit it. Roll over on CCHR, do yourself a favor, and get the truth out there, man. Nobody cares about you. People want Scientology to go down. People want Scientology to answer for its crimes. Don't be the patsy, man. I know you got wrapped up in all the Solomon bullshit. Let it go. Roll over. Tell the truth. That's much more interesting. That will actually get you subscribers and views, which is what you really crave at the end of the day, isn't it? Lori plays. Bye-bye, Anthony. Your toast. Good to see you, Lori. Inappropriate heifer. Good to see you, Hef. I trust you, and I have a flying monkey to prove it. Thank you so much, Hef. Constance June. Tony need to go to the feds and cut a deal. Love Maddie. It's just so amazing that he's talking about a supposed church that has religious tax exemption here. How can our government's IRS not do anything about this criminal organization? Old Frizz, CCHR and OSA do dirty tricks separately only in spirit. Like there's huge, they work together, but they run the money through CCHR so that it can't be traced back to Scientology itself. So yes, I would expect the Office of Special Affairs to be aware of what Russ is doing. Even if Russ would understandably maybe withhold information that he didn't even want OSA to know, but knowing that it's because he has the green light to do whatever needs to be done, however it needs to get done. And it's actually, operationally speaking, on some level, almost irresponsible for Russ to share more information than has to be shared. Like Mike said, people don't want to know how the work gets done. But it's not like OSA is ignorant to what Russ is doing. They just may not know exactly how he's doing it. Proper matter. Does his psychologist mother know about this? I'm going to say, yeah. Happy Talk. This is good stuff. Aaron. Thank you, Happy Talk. Lethenda Grauklinga. Is Zero Dark Tony's YouTube channel gone? I can't find it anymore. Well, since you're asking, let me just look real quick. Oh my God. Could you even imagine what was gone? I don't think that could possibly be true, could it? No, it's right there. I was going to say he's live right now, but that's me. No, he's there. I'm looking at his channel right now. Clearwater Chad, not cool, Eaton. Murderbot, pretty sure Scientology does more abuse than any psychiatrist. CO Bilf, I'm curious to know who else is getting those envelopes. You know what? I'm going to try to get that question answered. Thank you, CO Bilf. Adam Carmona, Scientology, an industry of debt. LOPNC1, good to see you. Susie says, Saz wrote a book called The Myth of Mental Illness. Guys, I've asked LOPNC1 who Susie is, and he has informed me that Susie is his body thetan. So welcome, Susie, to the chat as well. Hank Zorb, they probably paid the guy with the dog that assaulted you, Aaron. Yes, I 100% believe that CCHR and or Russ Andrews and his operatives are absolutely paying Patrick Perry to harass the protesters, in my humble opinion. Inappropriate heifer. Dang, I've been accused of being OSA, and I'm pissed that I did not get a sketchy envelope full of money. Yes. Hero Light Cody. Excellent topic. Thanks for covering this and sharing the inside scoop. My pleasure, Hero Light Cody. Good to see you here. Love Maddie. The reason LRH hates psychiatrists, etc., are that his wife took him to one who wanted him to be committed, and two, they poo-pooed Dianetics. So he had his fragile narcissist ego hurt. So true. Reese, I'm not very religious, but do other religions pay private eyes to nag their opposition? I got to tell you, I'm just not aware of it. I've seen a bunch of the documentaries out there about stuff Mormons go through, Jehovah's Witnesses go through, other cults, NXIVM, all that stuff. I've just never heard of this level of black bag operations against former members or critics. I've just never heard of it. But if that happens in other groups, I'm happy to even cover that in videos and interviews. But I think it's one of the things that makes Scientology uniquely horrible. Mary James, I find it awfully suspicious that Aaron and Sherlock Holmes have never been seen in the same room. Solid investigating work. Thank you, Mary James. Midwest Fishman. One time I called him out as a shill and he tried to attack me. Then I pointed out that his attack is exactly what a shill for Scientology would say. Yep. Paula Candeloro. Aaron coming in hard with his big bag of gifts. Carla's loving wife. You need to get an award for these reports. Seriously, Aaron, good work. Well, thank you very much. Honestly, it's just the information that I was given. Once I was given that information, it's not, it's pretty easy to kind of pull up all these other things and connect the dots, but I appreciate it. Stephanie Keeping, how embarrassing that it was being paid by Scientology and he still had to borrow money. So true. Everything about Zero Dark Phony is embarrassing. Jennifer Marie Joyce. Who else are they paying? That's what I want to know. I'll see if I can find out. Julia O'Connell. Harassing victims is horrible. It took a lot of courage to come forward in the first place. I don't understand why this harassment is not illegal. I mean, I guess the simple answer would be fine line between harassment and freedom of speech. Obviously, there is a line. The thing is, if you're considered a public figure, I don't know that there is actually much of a line. And, just doing stuff on the internet. Well, the reason why Tony got all the criminal charges against him for harassing Solomon is because Solomon's a child. And he did not limit his harassment of Solomon to the internet. He would also show up in person. And so that's what Anyway, I'm just giving you my opinion on this. Sue Irwin, Asmithlevin is dropping the mic left and right. Thank you, Sue. Rabbit, good to see you. Down the rabbit hole news. Aaron, happy holidays. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, all the good stuff, you guys. Good to see you, Rabbit. Susan P., member for 9 months. Thank you so much. Good to see you here. It's me, Anna 2010. Hi, Aaron. This is so disturbing. Happy holidays. Happy holidays, Anna. Arkansas Flamingo, like the background colors better. Thank you very, very much. Doesn't matter to you, not to me. Good to see you. Where's my envelope? I'll take it. Cash App. Ann Fisher. This is the type of crapola that makes me so angry that Scientology has a religious tax exemption. Yeah, but here's the good news, guys. We're winning the battle. We're winning the fight. There's nothing they can do, which is why they resort to doing this stuff. I wonder if it sounds like a contradiction. I'm saying they're doing all this stuff, but then I say there's nothing they can really do. It's because, in my opinion, the stuff that they do is not effective. Now, I realize other people are affected by it in ways that I'm not, right? Tony was doing video after video after video after video about me for weeks and months. I think I responded like once or twice, right? What he was doing and my responses to him did not distract me from what I'm really here to do, which is just to talk about Scientology as much as possible and remind the world as often as possible that Scientology is nothing more than a multi-billion-dollar international family-destroying human trafficking cult. I guess what I was saying is I don't think that all these shenanigans have much impact. But I might be a little naive when I say that. I guess what I'm really trying to do is, to some extent, show that there's nothing they can do because it doesn't bother me or keep me from doing what I'm doing. And I guess in some weird way, I'm sort of trying to lead by example. Like, look, there's all this shit everyone's trying to do and it doesn't really work. But I guess me insisting that it doesn't work, or just trying to say, hey, look, it doesn't work on me, I guess that doesn't actually literally mean that this stuff doesn't work. Because I guess we can point to a lot of examples where it has worked. I mean, look at all of the destruction and division that has been created in the protester community. Who do you guys think is responsible for that? Do you think Scientology had anything to do with it? And if so, who is Scientology influencing in the protester community that's leading to all of the division? A somewhat similar thing, to a lesser extent, has happened in the SPTV community in general. But again, I tend to not pay very much attention to that because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter if we are a cohesive, friendly community. What matters is if we just keep doing what it is we're supposed to be doing here on YouTube, which is getting the word out about Scientology and not spending too much time going after each other. And so I ask you, who is it in this community that just spends tons of time going after each other instead of primarily focusing on Scientology? And do you think Scientology has any influence in that? To some extent, it doesn't even matter what the answer is. It just matters that we just keep doing what Scientology doesn't want us to do, which is to keep talking about Scientology and not just going after each other. I forget what got me started on that rant, but there you go. Okay, let's see. Esperanza, do the front groups pay tax? No, they are tax exempt. Okay, guys, that's it. Thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you, as always, to everyone who watches until the very end, and I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe.